Well, it's also a really interesting question because I think there are disruptions that occur at different levels of impact, right? So some of the disruptions are external factors outside of your control, right? Macroeconomic shocks. The pandemic is obviously disrupting many of our traditional business processes, and now we can see supply chains breaking down, and we can see talent markets breaking, et cetera. So there's disruption that comes at you from many sources, and then there's disruption you create, right? And you can create disruption in the value proposition that you want to bring to a market. What we've seen over the past 7 to 10 years is people have brought fundamentally different thinking about how to create values for a particular customer segment. And while they were at it, they completely changed the commercial model, right? That was around that particular customer segment. And they were saying, hey, I'm willing to subsidize something that somebody used to pay for with a free service because I actually believe I can add more value in a different part of the value chain. And so I'm going to shift the profit pool in the industry to an area where I can win. And we've seen lots and lots of examples across industries of where the profit pools in the industry are shifting as those interesting customer value propositions are being put on the table. You can move beyond the value proposition to the actual business process, right? Mm-hmm. So, what is it that we assume about how we're going to deliver the value to the customer? What resources are we going to use? What technology is available to us? Who are we going to partner with in the ecosystem? And you can change all of those rules as well. And sometimes the most interesting disruptions are when two people from different value chains come together and they go and create value together in an unexpected way. So disruption can occur from lots of different sources. We've often been told technology is the primary disruptor. I don't agree that it's always technology. I think sometimes human capital is the primary disruptor, right? If we think about, for example, how we got the vaccinations that are available today around the COVID-19 virus, what we see is that there were people who were on the edge of the pharmaceutical industry, who were in a startup, who were doing something differently than the rest of the pharmaceutical industry was doing, that were making a bet about how to discover what the next round of drugs would look like. And so they didn't know that it was going to be for COVID, right? But they were out there, they were disrupting from a different part of the value chain in the pharmaceutical industry. And it just so happened that when we had the pandemic hit, they were able to take that expertise and apply it in a way that disrupted the timelines we had all been told that we were going to expect on when we could get a vaccination, and they collapsed it dramatically, right? And so I think disruption can happen lots of different levels of impact, and it can be from lots of different sources. It can also be positive or negative, right? Some disruption is not good for the world. Some disruption is fantastic for the world. In almost every case that we create disruption, we create unintended consequences of the disruption, right? So even if the disruption itself is fantastic, there could also be non-fantastic, unexpected or unintended consequences. And so, one of the roles of society, right, is to make sure that we have processes in place that manage disruption as it impacts different parts of society, to make sure that those unintended consequences are not punitive to audiences that we didn't expect to create an impact to, but we often do. And so what I would say is, if you're going to be in the business of creating disruption, you also have to be in the business of thinking about the unintended consequences that are potentially going to be created and how you're going to be helpful when that happens as well.